Welcome to MUFON Midwest, where we discuss some of the most interesting UFO, UAP sightings in the heartland. MUFON field investigators and eyewitnesses share their amazing experiences with the public on this podcast. And now, here's your host for MUFON Midwest, Margie K.
Good evening and welcome to MUFON Midwest. The show this evening is carryover from an event that we had for Central Region MUFON. Dr. Jim Segala spoke for us, and he was so fascinating that I just had to share him with the rest of MUFON. So, Dr. Segala holds a Ph.D. in physics and advanced degrees in engineering, and has made significant contributions to innovation and research across multiple scientific disciplines. For more than 10 years, Dr. Segala served as a senior researcher at the Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin, where he had led pioneering investigations in radiobiology, quantum entanglement, quantum optics, vacuum polarization, and neurobiology. Currently, Dr. Segala's research centers on unexplained injuries occurring under unusual or anomalous circumstances. This includes a comprehensive 3-year study documenting and analyzing anomalous activity in Utah's Uintah Basin, with findings to be published in an upcoming report. Welcome to the show, Dr. Jim.
Well, Margie, thanks for having me. This is great to talk to your, the whole MUFON group, I guess, anybody. So to get them like tuned into what's really going on out there with people that are getting hurt.
Exactly. And there have been many, many strange cases where people have become injured or even killed because of contact with ETs or UFOs. So we're going to talk about some of those tonight. And then we're also going to talk about some very specialized equipment. So we want to get that in as well. But to start off with, how did you become interested in studying this phenomena?
Well, I got invited to participate in some research into trying to explain the injuries that were occurring when people do have profound experiences with unknown phenomena, with seeing UFOs, seeing orbs, seeing crafts. And my background was kind of unique in that it had all the right check marks to actually get into this and to kind of make sense of it. I had radiobiology. I had done a lot of cancer research and the radiation oncology area. So I knew what energies that enter your body do to your body. So when I got recruited to help out a group of scientists that were trying to figure out why these people were getting hurt and what's going on, so my talents actually fitted pretty well. And I started doing this, not really understanding the whole landscape of this whole environment. But as I got more and more into it and started to hear a lot of these narratives, seeing the real data, I just got hooked into this and said, there's something going on here that, I'd love to participate in and do it. So this happened in 2011, I started doing this. And to this day, I mean, it overwhelms a lot of what I do on a daily basis.
Are there any particular places or hotspot places where this type of thing happens?
So there's, when I first started this, I thought everything that was cool happened in the United States, and I turned out to be wrong. But a lot of the things that do happen in the United States they're centralized in little areas like the Uintah Basin, but there's like very, very vast distances. In Arizona and Nevada, there's a lot of places. But down in South America, over in England, Australia, there is so much other things. But, there's a lot of really good hotspots. So one of the things you want to do when you do science, you want to get a good controllable environment so you can get repeatability. And we do have some really good places. Like we go to a certain place in Utah and we can set up, and we know that if we do the right things, something strange will happen. And then that'll really just make our evidence a lot better. And I'm sure that MUFON people know the exact same thing. They don't go someplace where there's nothing ever going to happen. They go someplace where they know they can see something and do their sky watching and get some evidence. So there are places in the United States that are like that. And that's what we kind of look at to do.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a hot spot here in Kansas City. And
I heard
that's some places we go to, and we always see UFOs if we do certain things. So it's interesting that in general, the field in general has figured out certain ways that will trigger an
Hmm.
event, and that's, to me, that's fascinating, which we will get into more about that in a minute. But there are some cases, in particular in Brazil, uh, that I published some books by some authors from Brazil that wrote about these things. They are crazy. What is the craziest case that you have run across in Brazil?
In Brazil, haven't really had much involvement with the Brazil
Mm.
data. Most of it has been more in the areas that we can go through. So can't really speak much on the Brazil ones, but I have some places that are in the United States or around the world, like in Australia, that had some very bizarre happenings that were very, very hard to explain. And, basically, got us going down a road. I mean, like for instance, in one of the situations, we had a person that claimed to see a craft and actually videotaped it. He went into a catatonic shock for probably almost 12 hours, got rushed to the hospital, stayed in that catatonic state for a long period of time, and eventually came out of it after quite a while. So that was one of those wake up calls that said, wow, these are really happening to people. Another incident,
Mhm.
somebody was going through their normal day. They were actually with their family coming out of a movie theater, looked up, saw a UFO, and instantly developed what they would call Parkinson type of symptoms, where they lost their ability to speak, they lost their ability to, they got dizzy. A lot of they were having hard times walking. And then when they went to the hospital, they were diagnosed with like onset of Parkinson's. This is like, that's not a thing that happens normally, but
No.
then it went away. I mean, Parkinson's takes a long time to develop and it does not go away. So those are the kind of things that really wake you up and say, there's something strange going on here. We really have to get to the bottom of it.
Have there been any cases where people have been burned? I know I have a couple of cases where they stuck their head outside a car window or were outside and a light that was emitted actually burned their skin.
Yeah, so we have a lot of cases where we have lesions that are developing. So you've got a lot of things that develop on your skin. Your skin is, of course, it's going to absorb all this stuff, right? And it's got to process it somehow. It's got to get rid of it. So what happens? Your body, your immune system will react to it, and it'll start. You get the pimples, and you get the almost like radiation burns. So you get a lot of that type of thing where people will have these incredible. And I actually do have some images, if I can show you later, of people that have been in contact with a UFO and then walked away, and they found these things on their body that were just unexplainable. That all they came right after the thing, and then disappeared right away.
There was a case recently, not too far north of me in Kansas City, near Excelsior Springs, where a woman took video of what looked like a beam of light coming down from the sky. She couldn't see where it was coming from, either way, if it was going up or coming down, but here's this
Hmm.
beam of light. And then we got two more people file reports, and one of the people got close to the beam of light, and on the side of the car where they were driving, and then the left side, she had the window down, and her left arm was burned, even
Oh
though she
wow,
wasn't too close to that light.
yeah. Well, that's if you remember back, at some point back to Rushden Forest, they had those people that got close to a UFO and ended up having severe cancer after that. So this is
Oh
something
yeah.
that is not a one-off. I mean, these are things that actually do happen. So, it's not one of those things that you have to be careful about it. If you want to do a sky watch, you say, well, I want to do it because I don't want to get hurt. I mean, these people came in contact with it and they were close to it, and they got close enough where the radiation actually did something to them. So we have a lot of evidence like that. And there's a lot of historical evidence as well that people do get hurt.
So is there radiation coming off of the craft, or are they purposely like beaming the radiation at people?
I can't answer that question. I don't really know but the energies are such that it looks more like it's a propulsion system kind of dirtiness, where they're using their stealth or whatever that energy it is because of that energy, you get a little bleed of radiation that comes off of it that shows up. So when you do IR or you look at it in a certain camera, you can see it sometimes in some of these images, and it's just that maybe that's just part of their propulsion system. I don't think they'll it's been my opinion that they don't purposely do that. Because they don't report having anything other sinister things happening to them. They didn't feel like they're being attacked. They felt like they were just observing, and then they walked away and said, "Oh, wow, how come I have all these bumps on my skin? How come I have these rashes and lesions on my skin?"
Yeah, so it may not be something purposeful.
It's a dirtiness of whatever is going on within their systems that we're just picking up because we happen to be there.
Do you think that these craft that people are involved with or encountering are military, ours, or something else?
My opinion, and this is now not a scientific fact, this is my opinion, is that I don't think the government has the wherewithal to do the type of things and have them enter our space like this. I mean, look at the Tic Tacs. I mean, they did some phenomenal things. If we had that technology, why hasn't that leaked to other things? So I think that is definitely not from this planet. And these are things that I can't envision the technological, and I read a lot of papers. So if it hasn't come out, squeaked out in some papers, like, we had this little technology here and there, then, I would say that this is something that was, probably something that grew outside of this. And then just to back that up, I mean, a lot of governments reverse engineer things that they do see. So why would they be reverse engineering something that they did themselves? So it's usually some technology that did this to the population, and now they want to understand how to grab that technology. So I would say it's probably off planet, to be honest with you.
Do you know of any cases where a human came into contact with an extraterrestrial being and was injured as a result?
Yeah, so we worked closely with, there's a ranch. I don't want to name the ranch because I'm sure people know who it is, but there was a family that lived in I think it was Arizona. It was definitely in Arizona, that came into contact on a regular basis, showed a lot of problems, a lot of health problems because of it, and eventually passed away because of it. So there's the kind of thing that you're continually working and talking with these people and having them in the house and being visited by them. They eventually just got sick. They had some blood disorders. They got sick.
There are, I think I know which one you're talking about. There are some cases where a person has an intense encounter with a UFO and or ETs. Mm-hmm. And then they start having like poltergeist activities in their houses. Have you run across cases like that?
100%. So what happens is that it seems like, one of the things that we do, a lot of these things, a lot of answers that I have are not speculative answers. They're either answers coming from a large data set that we've collected over the past 10 years. And what we're finding is that they have an onset events, some trigger event that happens, some, monumental thing. They said the first time they have it. And then subsequent to those, they start having repeated events on and on. It's almost like when you get that first event, it's the phenomena really hooking up to you. So you're sharing consciousness with it, or however you want to describe it. And then after that point, you almost have an open conduit to this thing, and you constantly are getting things. So you always, in the narratives, you pick out, and we have these ways of reading narratives and understanding what they're talking about. What you find is that there's a histology where they will go and they have this big experience, like something would happen. That they would, just like a big thing, they would see something, and then subsequent to that, they say, oh, now all of a sudden, every 2 months, I see an orb going through my house. I never saw that before. Or, I see them in the yard, or all of a sudden things are happening to me on a regular basis that never happened before. And it's not just the principal person that saw it. What happens is that when you get this shared consciousness with something else, they start seeing people around you that are close to you, and they start picking up on them. And that's called the hitchhiker syndrome. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Oh, yes.
It's the kind of thing that's very prevalent. People that visit like Skinwalker or Blunt Frog or some of these ranches that have, or these properties that have these very large number of accounts that go on, they walk away. They might not be initially affected or understand that they're being affected, but they go home, they spend some time with their family, and all of a sudden they're seeing, very strange things and getting medical effects and things like that. So
Yeah.
it's very, very real. And I know that there's a couple of scientists that have done some statistics on it and found out that it's big enough statistics that, it's really real.
Oh, yeah. And especially with MUFON investigators, when they go to sites in the field, they have had similar things happen where they have the hitchhiker effect. They go home and they start having things happen that never did before.
And I know to that point, I know some people that have started to develop protocols that they do to almost clean them, metaphorically, clean themselves before they go back and visit your family, just to get, and I know that people in Utah, they will say a prayer. Literally, they'll stop before they go into the property. They'll say a prayer. When they leave the property, they say a prayer. But I think a lot of them are actually, first of all, if you respect this thing that happened to you and you don't treat it like, oh, that's good, let's see if I can get it to go again. It's, start what they call, poking the hornet's nest. Basically, you can get that to not happen. So, and there's people that are actually documenting these protocols. It's actually quite interesting.
We have a thing we call white light. We put white light around ourselves before we go out for protection. So, apparently they don't like that. Whoever or whatever it is. What are some of the worst cases that you have taken a look at as far as injuries are concerned?
Well, I mentioned the one that really, really bothered me, the one that really kind of hit home with the Parkinson one. So you look up, see a UFO, and then all of a sudden you develop these symptoms of Parkinson's. We've had people that just recently, we have people that end up with these autoimmune diseases that just are not normal, not in their genetics. It's not something like one in 100 million, 100,000 people would have, and all of a sudden they have it. After they've been on some property. So there's a lot of these kind of autoimmune type of things that occur that are unexplained. Autoimmune comes in when, your body is seeing something that it doesn't like and it's starting to attack itself. So that's the kind of thing that, are they implanting something in us that's all of a sudden the body, your immune system just doesn't like, and it's just trying to get rid of it. So those are the kind of injuries that stand out for me, that being the worst, because it's your body's like, I don't get this, I don't like this in me. I want to help you get it out of there, but it just doesn't know how to do it. So it's like things like that are really kind of disturbing.
Are you running into people who have implants?
Yes. Well, yeah, definitely. So, and it's kind of weird, but a lot of the implants, they will go to the doctor, they'll CT it, and they'll say, you got something in you that's strange. I don't want to take it out because it's in a bad area or something like that. And then it just eventually just goes away. And they go back for CT like a year later, say, where'd that thing go? It just goes away. So a lot of the occurrences, when we do follow-ups, like we do, when we talk to people, we do follow-ups. We say, okay, they say, yes, I've had an implant. They kind of describe it. Say, oh, by the way, how long did that last? How long have you seen it? And they'll give a time. They'll say, well, after 2 years, I stopped seeing it, or I stopped feeling it. And then they say, well, in my symptoms, or not my symptoms, my occurrences dropped, after I stopped seeing it. So it definitely something that they feel that they've had something, and they have evidence that they have something in their bodies, but it doesn't stay forever. It just goes away after a little while, which is actually quite interesting.
I had a case a few years ago where a woman pulled an object out of her nose that was a long metal thing with little legs on it. She put it in a glass vial, and a couple of days later she went to go retrieve it, and it was gone.
It was gone. Yep.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, whatever technology is used to do this is sophisticated enough to know that it can't. They don't want to get reverse engineered.
Right.
So they protect, whatever that thing is, like you said, they protect themselves.
Yeah, either they came back to get it or it dissolved itself.
or
Who knows?
or went to another dimension, or whatever you want
Yeah.
to throw at it. But you're right. We have a lot of those.
Has this work changed your view of the world and our existence?
Well, it does. In fact, you can't help it, because the first thing people think is that everything is exactly the way I've been taught that it goes. If I push a button, this happens. If I do this, this happens. And then all of a sudden, you get these things that say, well, this is a UFO and an unknown consciousness or whatever it is. Now, then you ask yourself, what other assumptions I had made in my life that are just can't hold water, because this is not true. So you kind of question everything at that point. So it has made a huge difference in my life.
What do you think the world would be like if we were taught in school about extraterrestrials?
Oh, that's funny. Well, there goes all the sci-fi movies would have crashed and burned, because it's like, yeah, we learned that in school. That's no fun. It's like, I love those sci-fi movies where some future tech or future race was talking to a lesser race, and they say, "Oh man, that advanced technology you think you had, we learned that in first grade." So that's the kind of thing that it's anyway. So it's quite interesting. So if they had known this all along, if we had been taught this, then I think that we would be not questioning it, and disclosure wouldn't even happen. We just, okay, I get it. This is just part of our net, and it might be in a few generations from now. That's exactly what it might be. It's just part of our natural life. Our couple generations down the road, they just might. This is the way it is. Where you get visited.
Yeah, exactly. Have you run into any cases where there was a death involved of a person
Yes.
who came in contact?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've had, unfortunately, one of the problems is, and it actually quite a few people that were in the study that we did originally, they ended up passing away because of the injuries that we were trying to investigate. So quite a few, and there were a lot of autoimmune blood diseases that were just so crazy that we just couldn't find a reason that they would have gotten them. Like I said, no genetic signature in their blood. So it's like, how did you get this? And they have no idea. But it's one of those things that just brought them down, and just eventually they just passed away.
The autoimmune diseases, are there any in particular that keep showing up again and again?
Not really. I mean, there's a list of them. I don't want to, scare anybody into them, but it's a wide breadth of those. But a lot of the things that happen, like you get these lesions or fibrosis, or one of those things that your body is just attacking it, and it's just supercharging your immune system to try to get rid of something, and that's you get super tired, and you start feeling dizzy, and you have like tinnitus a lot. I mean, those are your body trying to get rid of things. So there's no one particular or grouping. I mean, I could probably get into some other things and kind of give you an idea of what the landscape looks like for injuries. In fact, that's the same presentation I showed you when we had our meeting, but nothing in particular.
That's strange. I would think it would be something consistent, just by exposure to certain things that a reaction would happen, and you'd think that would be something that's more traceable. Yeah, the I know people who have been in close contact with craft, and
Hmm.
have developed autoimmune diseases, and they're very difficult to deal with.
Yes, very, very, yeah,
And in most cases, they never go away. It's
right.
a matter of just managing the symptoms.
You got to manage it and try to take away all the things. It kind of dissipate a lot of what it's doing.
Do the people who have reported to you, uh, after conversing with them, or taking their reports, do they are they appreciative of the fact that there are other people who are going through the same thing?
So, yeah, so we have a portal that we offer to anybody in the world that wants to get into it. And one of the things that we do with it, we've taken all this accumulated data. We have like 40,000 narratives, and You have hundreds of people all over the world that contribute their data and stuff like that. One of the things you can do is say, here's my case, because the system knows who you are, knows your history and everything like that. Is say, how do I compare with the rest of the world? I mean, am I just like a one-off, or am I, because people tend to feel better about a situation like that if they say, well, I'm not just one in a billion. I'm, if other people have dealt with this and actually have gotten through this. So, and that's one of the things that we offer, is the ability to not only ask the system questions about how they are compared to the rest of the world, but how they can ask people that have been in this for many years and have learned to deal with it. We've had people that literally have found a way to make these occurrences go away and put it away. And they do a certain protocol that allows them to like really get a handle on it. It's just, they want to live their lives. I mean, they want to go through their lives without having to deal with some of these things. Some people love to have these interactions and go into these states where they lose time and they learn something. But some people just say, look, I just want to get on with my life. So we offer a lot of that kind of therapeutic stuff.
Are you noticing that there's a particular trend or a pattern amongst experiencers, and how many people in the world are having these experiences?
Well, so I think that the quote that I like came from Noetics. So it's the Dean Radin's place. They think that there's 30% of the population of the world are, to some extent, experiencers. A lot of them don't realize it. A lot of them don't admit it. But 30% of the population of the world have had some experience in their lives. And this came right out of their research. They did a big research study into this. 30% of the population of the world is an enormous number. I mean, that's a lot of people.
It is.
So that was actually quite revealing. I just learned that, I just read their study a few months ago, and I said, wow, that's just so many people that are in this, that are looking to basically, or that realize that they've had some experience in their lives.
And then as far as records go, I mean, of course, we've got a database with MUFON, but there are other places that have these databases and studies like yours. And if they all got together, I bet the number would be astronomical.
Sure.
But that also brings something else to mind. I've worked on a number of cases where one spouse has acknowledged and they're aware of these experiences and abductions and visits, and the other spouse is not aware, or they're in complete denial, even though they might have physical signs, scoop marks,
Sure.
3-prong marks, just all sorts of things. And they are in such denial, such a state, they will not acknowledge that. So
we have a lot of people like that. Other family members, children. You usually have like one person and one child that might be really, really big experiencers, and then the rest of the family are not. So maybe it's a choice they make. It could be something that they've made that conscious choice not to really delve down into this thing and get involved, to understand what's going on with their lives. But and that kind of puts a little thought into, like, is it genetic? Is it something that could be passed down? Like Gary Nolan is very big into that, right? He feels that there's a genetic element to this, where people that are experiencers get that down from from the generations and things like that. So, but maybe there's people that just don't want to handle this. Their personalities are not such that they want to feel that they're 100% in control of things. If they feel that there's other things out there that are controlling things that they have no control of, I mean, that scares a lot of people. So that's why I said, there's might be 30% of the population are considered that have experiences, but a lot of them say, look, I'm not going to admit it. I don't want to feel that there's something more powerful than me here.
Right. So, and those are usually men, in my opinion.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. It's very possible.
At least in my experiences.
Yeah.
The wife is
possible.
admitting it, and the man is, no, that does not happen. I mean, I've even had had a case where my husband called me once, and he had never seen a UFO, and he was at a convention. He says, "You're not going to believe what I'm looking at." And then he gets home, and then a couple years later, he's like, "No, I think I imagined it." That at the time he was adamant about what he saw.
He's a true believer at that point.
Yeah, but no, he wanted to put that on the back burner. Didn't want that to be true. Yeah.
I think that's brings up a question: is that is society ready for this? What if we did come up with an answer? What if disclosure and all this information, all these citizen scientists that are getting things? What if we did get an answer that kind of said that there's something out there?
Mm-hmm.
So is it that all these people were going to wake up and say, "Oh, okay, now I'm going to have to say, yeah, there's an intelligence out there that's non-human, that is that has some control over me, that it gives me these experiences and thoughts," and that might be really scary to people. I don't know what the other 70% of the population are going to do to deal with that.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. You don't know what's going to happen,
right? And how they're going to deal with that.
A lot of people feel like disclosure is slowly happening, and that eventually, we're going to have the big reveal. But so let's shift gears here a little bit and talk about some technology that you've developed to track UFOs and what you're doing with that.
So just to give you kind of an idea of how this whole thing started. So when we started noticing a large number of people that were having experiences walking away with some form of injury on their body, physical injury, like lesions and headaches and nosebleeds, and the number of injuries are just vast. We had the argument is, look, if it's something that is not born inside them, in other words, the vector, the thing that actually caused this injury, didn't come from inside. It must have come from outside. It must have been something from outside, some energy, something. So that's when we said, look, why don't we try to measure the environment continuously? That way we can see exactly when this thing happened and match it or correlate it with what their experiences are telling us. And that's when it started out. And that's what we got some funding for. This is, back in 2015. And that started the whole idea of let's put the equipment around them, monitor their surroundings, let them give a narrative on a continuous basis, hourly or daily or whatever they want to do. And then we're going to correlate that and see when they make these correlations or make these narratives, is there something in the environment that maybe ticked up a notch or had a little change in it that indicated something did come from the outside and was actually introduced into their body? And that's what your immune system got all fired up about, that something from the outside came in and made a difference. So from that one thought and one started of our investigation, it kind of morphed into this. Now we have, basically people all over the world that have these devices that they put in their environment. They either put on so we've got these devices that they put on the wrist, that they walk around, they wear on their head sometimes, when they're sleeping. We've got devices that we put, in their living rooms. We have devices that a lot of MUFON people take out into when they do their sky watching, they put on the table. They want to measure all sorts of things in the environment. So that, like I said, that initial concept of can we measure the environment, an environmental signal that changes when they have their experience came, actually moved along to the point now we have a full breadth of medical, scientifically graded equipment that people are using all over the world.
And what have the results been? Are you seeing correlations?
So we see a lot of correlations. So, and I can actually walk you through a couple very interesting ones. We did, familiar with CE5s, we did a few CE5s over the past year that we use as our benchmarks, where the individuals have been doing these CE5 protocols for a year. They've gotten some pretty good results, saw some very interesting things. We then they actually introduced into it more scientific equipment into it. And then what they're finding is that when they do have these incidences, they were actually getting some significant amount of information that was coming from the thing. And if you want, I can actually share my screen if you want.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
And then I can show you these things. So this is a analysis. They call it CE6. So everybody has a little bit of a spin on. Are you seeing my screen? So
Yes.
I think you are. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is a CE6 analysis, which is something that is a little bit different when they do pause, like a CE5. So they don't do it for like an hour straight. They'll do it for a little bit of time, and then they'll kind of pause a little bit, kind of reset themselves, and then they'll start it again. They'll intent and they'll do that. So what they do in the CE6, which is a little bit of a variation on it, they'll do a chant, which actually synchronizes everybody in the environment around them to get them all going. And they felt that they could have a much better outcome if they actually have the people say something in unison as opposed to just sitting there thinking. And that's what Stephen Greer's initial thing is okay, everybody start, focusing on this. But instead, what these people do is that they actually have them chant. So, I mean, you can do it any way you want, but the outcome is that they started making these very large, they started doing this in a very scientific way. So this is one of the outcomes of this, where this is the data that came from the device. I mean, you can see some of the weird stuff that's going on. This is a normal day. Everything is fine, just jiggling around for the microwave energy. And all of a sudden you get these enormous spikes. And just as they have these enormous spikes, you get these pressure gradients that are in the environment. So your ears, people, said that their ears popped. They very strange things were going on. They had some problems with the acceleration vector. There was a big clump that they got infrasound. So infrasound is 20 hertz and lower, which we can't hear with our ears. But their system recorded this big infrasound, and what they think that is that something entered when they were doing this CE6 protocol. Something entered the environment that they weren't aware of and made this big clopping noise at that very super low frequency that the instrument picked up, but they couldn't understand. So that's why it's so important to have scientific instruments around, because human beings are not always going to get all the fidelity and marry it. So. And then, of course, we go through and do a very detailed analysis and explain to the people exactly what happened, why it happened, what are the things that, they can look for the next time, why are the things that, why would the acceleration vector do something and say, so that was a subtle but a very noteworthy change in that thing. So these are reports that we give people. So when they do these things, and this, of course, we're correlating this with what they're telling us. So this is not something that we just have some instruments that are just recording things. They're going through and stopping and recording and telling all of the system what's going on during these times. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we give them a conclusion. And then we have another one. So this was done in the Ozarks. This is something that was done just recently. And, again, we had some very strange occurrences. So they started their chanting around 10 o'clock. And then when it got to the point where they really were focused and going, you had these very, very strange changes in the magnetic vector, which is very, very strange. And then your pressure did some strange things as well. And then you had a electromagnetic spike. And again, these are the kind of things that they're out there doing their Skywatch or their CE5 or whatever they're doing, but they don't realize that the environment is actually having these very large, basically sensor spikes that they're not aware of. So that's what having, and Greer said this, to do the best job, you really need to have as much scientific equipment around you. So when this thing does happen, you get the information about the environment, what the people are feeling. So it's really, started with Stephen Greer, and now it's into the point where, we've got some equipment and we've got a protocol and a system in place where people can actually run these things, very, very smoothly without having to do a lot of extra stuff. Again, we do a lot of reporting, and we get people say, for instance, this is kind of weird. So the gyroscope went crazy during their whole thing, and we couldn't explain how that can happen. And then what happens below is that the system will tell you, it says, oh, by the way, somewhere in here, it says this was a genuine anomaly because the only way that this could possibly have happened is this. And so it gives you this whole thing, and it gives you an indication of what is not possible. So we have this all built into the system. So when they do this, they're getting these, very detailed reports. So it's no longer like, oh, well, we had this cool thing and it's all anecdotal. This is actually scientific information that people can use. So these are all very, very interesting things that happen. So, and we have a lot of these. People are starting to now do, so we have MUFON groups in Colorado that's actually doing this with our equipment, that are going through and doing, they're doing, I think next month, they're actually having a big one where they're going to have a whole bunch of people go to an area. They're going to set up with the cameras and a whole bunch of our MUPOS devices around them. And they're going to do a CE5. Actually, it's more of it's a kind of combination of a Skywatch CE5 event.
Yeah, and we're calling them CE6 events.
Oh, you are going to call them that. Yeah, because you spin in that extra. I think the chanting is actually important because it gets everybody synced, and that's super important.
We do, and we are going to do one next month here in Kansas City in September.
Sure.
As well. And we do drumming.
Yes, that's a good one.
Everybody has drums, and then I also play on the on speakers.
Yeah, that's a good one to get people synced. And I think that's the biggest thing is if you're not synced, your shared intent is not going to amplify. They're going to kind of cancel each other out. So it's so important. And that's what we're trying to help people do. So we publish this protocol. So anybody that signs up, it's all free. Anybody that signs up can read it and say, oh, I get it. Okay. I know what to do now. And it kind of walks them through and how to do it. It's because there's a lot of people out there that want to do this.
Oh, there are. And this technique, doing a CE5, CE6, it is so reliable.
Yes.
So people if somebody wants to see a UFO, just go to one of these events because you'll see them.
Yeah, you'll see them, and you'll see a lot of the other things you'll see. I mean, we had one group that actually formed a vortex in the sky. It just circled around them. It's like, how the heck did you guys do that? Is it they all intended on it, and they all try to make it happen. And then that was in the protocol, and they actually recorded it. And then what we recorded, all this crazy atmospheric stuff was going on. And the report, I can't give you the report because that was a confidential one that they didn't want to share. The ones that I showed you we have permission to share those. But there's some people that have these amazing things that happen.
Back to the equipment for a moment, the gyroscope going crazy. That had me a little concerned. Doesn't that mean that something's moving?
Moving and twisting. So the accelerometer is something moving in directions, right? So that's back and forth, side by side, up and down. But the gyroscope is moving and spinning. That means something came in the environment and caused it to kind of wiggle you, basically. And that's what it was picking up. It's a wiggle. It's almost like something came in that was like spinning really fast, and it made your local environment spin a little bit with it. And that was actually quite interesting. When I was at Blind Frog is a place in Utah that has a lot of very, very strange anomalous things happening. We found one night that it just every half an hour, the gyroscope went crazy, and there was nobody there. I mean, there was nobody within 50 miles of the place. The gyroscope went crazy, like for every half an hour. It was almost like something came in that was actually circling it and then went away. But to do that, it had to have been like something very, very powerful, not a drone, not an aircraft, not a satellite. It was something that had to be very, very powerful. And then I just want to mention another thing that we do is that when people use our system, as soon as they sign up and everything like that, and they say, okay, we're going to do a CE5 or CE6 or whatever, we go through and we look for all the ADSB stuff. We know every aircraft in the area. We know all the weather. We know everything. So we say, well, there was a satellite there. So a lot of people will say, all the naysayers will say, well, it's probably a satellite. Nope, no satellites were in the area. So what we'll do in the reports is we'll get rid of all of the common things that could have caused this thing and really boil it down to what was going on. So when you get these reports, the reports really, really give you ammunition to say, this is legit, this is bona fide. We saw this, and it's got all the scientific information to back it up.
That's nice because that takes forever to research. As
Yeah,
MUFON investigators, we go through all of that, and it takes a long time
it takes
to
a
go to
lot.
each of
Yeah,
these sites. But with your program,
it
it's
just does
done.
it automatically.
Yeah,
It'll
that's
tell you like an
fantastic.
aircraft, at this exact moment when somebody did this, there was an aircraft overhead or whatever, or it just says there was nothing
Mhm.
overhead. And then that gives you a little bit more credibility into what the narratives are saying and the instrumentation is saying.
So, where do people go to get more information and find out how they can get involved?
So I can share the screen again, back to our. So this is actually going to be, so this is the URL they would go to. And then I have a QR code here. You just click into that and it'll go right to it. But
Okay.
basically it's this site right here. So you can just look at this for a second, but it brings you to this site.
Okay.
So
So
this,
for our listeners who are
yeah.
not
Oh,
watching,
listeners, right. So it's,
uh,
go ahead.
it is MUPAS, MUPAS dash worldwide.com.
Right.
MUPAS dash worldwide.com.
And just want to mention to everybody that on the site, there is a learn button and all of these documents, we have lots and lots of, so if anyone just wants to read about what's going on in the industry and understand things, we have lots and lots of documents that we put here, like Colin Kelleher talking about all these things, Havana syndrome, radio spectrum. We have all this stuff put together. And then we have all of these sites around that you can get in and get into papers and things like that. We have FAQs that you can look at. So we have a ton of data on here that you could just basically go and peruse it and learn a little bit about this stuff. Plus we have, we could talk about, we could look at the portal. So our portal is basically, so like this is, we have like Blind Frog Ranch has a device right now that's sitting on it, and you can look at this and you can put narratives in, you can click on it and you can add an observation to it. You can say, oh, this line was crazy, and you can put in, whatever you want to say. And then other people will comment on that. And then you have some really cool stuff. You can look at your own ADSB. So right now I'm in New Hampshire and I can get all of the ADSB stuff. So these are all the flights over my head right now. You can see right here, this is me. There's nothing. So if I had an experience right now, there is nothing over me. So this is the closest airplane, which is way, way far away. This is Portland. So this is Concord. But I would say if I had an experience at this point, no aircraft actually got in my path. And then we have the satellite. So you can go to the satellite one. You can look for probably nothing around me. So I could actually, you have to switch over. That's weather. You can see Elon Musk must have so a lot of Starlinks are over my head right now. So these are all the Starlinks. But they don't really have a lot of, they don't really do a lot as far as making it. So I had an experience, the closest one is way over here. So it's not a satellite doing it. So in other words, what you do is, if you have an experience and say, wait a minute, was it something that was from an airplane or anything like that? So we have all of these things to let you understand what's going on in your area. So like this is the weather. So for in this area, it'll show you the different weather. It'll show you, the temperatures, it'll show you pressures, it'll show you all sorts of stuff. And it'll give you that confidence that what you experience is actual legit experience and not something that was induced by, an aircraft or satellite or weather or whatever. So we have all these things. And then, another one we just added, we added an earthquake one, which is kind of cool because a lot of these things, there's no earthquakes around on the East Coast. It's all up here. So sometimes earthquakes will introduce infrasound, right? You get that P waves that cruise over
Right.
So what we do is when we have somebody doing a CE5, the first thing we do is says, were these people just sitting over an earthquake that happened? So we go through, we look at this. So, these are bigger earthquakes. These are tiny little earthquakes. So those are the kind of things that we have built into the system that people could get for free. And then of course we've got, the cases, which is where you actually enter the information about, like if you go in your register, so I can register and I can say, okay, I want to start a CE6. You come in here, what dates, who's your team members, where you're located, basically, give it a name, then register the case. And then once you do that, the system actually, so we have our cell phone apps actually have this all built into it, that people just, have the phones on them and they'll just go push a button, do a quick narrative, then get right back to the CE5 or CE6. So they can do a quick narrative, explain what's going on, and then basically just walk away from that. But, if anyone wants to see what this is all about, just go to mupas-worldwide.com and, basically spend as much time as you want on the website and learn. And, and then if you want to get involved, there's ways to get involved. You just go over here and you come down to the study. You want to get involved in the study. We were fortunate enough to have a old participant from way back in 2018-19 area that their family was changed. Their ability, their family changed so much by just being involved in our study that they said that the next time you bring a study out, I would like to fund the people that come in, because they know a lot of people have these problems, but they can't actually, deal with them. So the system helps people and allows them to do this. So they pay for a lot of the equipment. They fund all this stuff. So if you want to get involved, there's a free route, or not, a very inexpensive route to do that. So we can set you up with all that.
What is the range of your equipment?
Well, it really depends on what signal that. So acoustically, everything is very local. So it's going to be in your local environment, because sound doesn't propagate that much. Well, actually, infrasound does travel pretty far. The electromagnetic is very wide open. So you can have an electromagnetic energy that happened like 100 miles away, and we'll pick it up. So the higher energy, like the gamma and all that stuff, is very, very local. It's a particle that came from like for instance, when a high energy vehicle like a UFO or something like that changes direction really quick, you might get some gamma particles off of it, or alpha particles. Those are particles. So you have to be right in but usually they come down to showers. So we pick up a lot of that stuff. So that is pretty not great as far as being able to pick up a wide area. But the electromagnetic energy or the RF energy, acoustics, of course, the gravity vector is it's right where you are. The gravity vector might be different a little bit farther away. So the range of those is not the greatest. It doesn't pick up something that's like 10 miles away. It's right where you are. But the electromagnetic stuff and the gamma rays or the gamma detectors and I guess the infrasound and all that, those sensors are pretty diversified. They'll pick up stuff like 20 miles away.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can't wait to get involved. And I think we'll get set up for our CE6 event that we're doing
That's
next
excellent.
month.
Okay.
Can't wait to find out what happens there. And, what's nice about this is, these groups do events like that and they skywatch, but then a lot of them are not using scientific instruments. And
Right.
this is one way, to have scientific proof that, something is going on that's anomalous.
Right. So, when they do see something and they don't have it recorded in a way that they can then, that they use it to go forward, it's wasted. It's like, great. And so now what are we going to do with that information? It's very important. And Greer actually said this, you need to document, you need to have, pictures and narratives and things like that all put together. So you have this thing to go forward with it and then learn from it. Right. So that's the big deal, right? You do something, the group does something, and then the next time you go out, you want to use that to leverage even better results. So that's what the system is designed to do, because it'll give you suggestions. So like next time, use a little bit more time between your pauses, or next time, have this person in charge or something like that.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been fascinating. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people. And we will share this around and get the word out.
Excellent.
And appreciate your work.
Excellent. Thanks talking to you today.
All right. See you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that wraps up another edition of MUFON Midwest. I'll see you next time. The MUFON Midwest podcast is a production by Unex Media. I'm your host, Margie Kay. The producers are Race Hobbs and Bill Skywatcher. Copyright 2026 by Margie Kay and MUFON. This is the Central Region MUFON podcast, and our website is MUFONCentralRegion.org. If you've had a UFO encounter and would like to be a guest on the program, please contact me at MUFONCentralRegionDIR@gmail.com. To file a UFO report, go to MUFON.com. That's MUFON.com.